All right. Hello, everybody. I know we changed the time last minute. I'm sorry. And whoa. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I swear I do it every time.
You're
time.
Terrible.
Yeah, I know. I'm terrible
So
about it.
terrible.
Sorry about that. Round 2, okay, which is fitting because we are on round 2 on this topic. So, welcome everybody to the round 2 of today's hearing. Now,
Well, I'm going live today.
well,
And yeah,
going
the
live
hearing.
today, but we're talking specifically about the hearing. And part of the reason I like to revisit stuff twice is because I don't know about you guys, but I like to chew on things. I'm a thinker. So like I need to absorb the information. I need to think about it. I need to dissect it in my brain. I need to pull it apart, piece it back together, think of all the different possibilities from each step along the way. And to be honest, with how insane today's hearing was, I still don't feel like I've had enough time to do that. I still don't feel like I'm in a place where I truly feel like I can guesstimate the next direction of this case. Now, welcome, and make sure you check us out on all of our podcast platforms, on all of our social media platforms. You can find us at Thought Riot Podcast, spelled all the way out. Thought Riot Podcast, spelled all the way out. We are on everything, everywhere, all at once. Thought Riot Podcast is omnipresent, and welcome to the show. All right, so one of the things that we did, you guys, I'm going to open up this Q&A here in just a minute, and this will probably be a poll-heavy show as well. I want input. I want to know how people feel about it. I want to know how people felt about the hearing. I'm hoping that we are continuing to attract people that are not only pro burgers, but no burgers. I hope that we're getting people that believe he's guilty. I hope that we're getting people that believe he's innocent. I think that's the only way I feel confident about growing my personal knowledge on the case and what we can expect to see and everything in between.
Yeah, me too. I think it's really good to have many different opinions, many different perspectives in one community. It helps prevent it from being an echo chamber, and it helps us all expand our minds.
Yes, I did put a poll out there, you guys, earlier. So if you go to our community page, community tab, you will be able to get
YouTube.
it on YouTube. Yeah, thank you. I always forget because I'm primarily working with the YouTube chat. But yeah, so on YouTube, and we already have a lot of people on other platforms on here. But yeah, so this will be on YouTube. The Q&A will be on YouTube. Here, I'll just copy and paste what I put in the community tab onto this Q&A. Give me 1 second, you guys. I probably wrote too much, honestly. Oh yeah, that's not going to fit. I think we're only given 100. Yep. Okay. So share your questions, comments, concerns from today's hearing here. Yeah. Okay. Bam. There we go. Good to go. Okay. So why don't you dig in first? How are you feeling after sitting on this for a while? Have you had any new enlightening ideas, any new enlightening thoughts? Has anything else come to your top of mind, front of mind, whatever you want to call it, of the hearing today?
Well, I feel like a lot was exposed in this hearing, if I'm being honest.
Ooh,
I
that's a
think
strong
this shines a light on the state dragging their heels. And look, I have felt like the state was dragging their heels literally from day one. We were in the beginning, we believe the state was dragging their heels to get Bryan Kohberger to waive his right to a speedy trial. We both felt like that. We're both like, what? This is weird. Like, it feels like the state is manipulating to get him to waive that.
I'm right there with you.
Now I feel pretty confident that is exactly what happened. I think that the state doesn't have, or either is trying to, they do have it and they don't want to turn it over because they're still trying to build their case possibly. And they don't want to turn it over until they have all their ducks in a row. I think they're dragging their heels, and I think it's obvious at this point. And, you know, I've seen a lot of people ask, like, what?
You just keep talking. I was just going to bring this up. I think what Chris is talking about here is the concern that we brought up earlier.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay. But yeah, thank you, you guys, and anybody. We're going to try and get deep in conversation and everything. I forgot something. I got to go do something real quick here while you're giving your intro and your breakdown of the case. But yeah, we'll get into that, and then we are going to dive back into some of the topics and go from there.
All right. So what I was going to get into next was about the, so I got a tweet. Okay. After the hearing, I was on our Twitter or X, and somebody, Speedy Bird, it was Speedy Bird who's in chat right now. She tweeted us and said, hey, we missed something. There was a federal grand jury. And I want to get into this a little bit and just throw the idea around because she's right. I rewatched the hearing, and it's a part that all of us, I guess, just overlooked because it's a really boring part where the prosecution is citing code. Like, they're giving all their reasons, citing all the codes of why this hearing should be closed. Well, it's through that they cite a code that and say that it has to do with a federal grand jury. Now, what does that mean? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that could mean. Like, does that mean they tried to indict Kohberger like into a federal case? Like, was this going to become a federal case? Did it not go through? Did it go through? I don't know. I'm not sure what that means or what that entails. I was trying to look up the code that she cited, so I could try to figure it out, but this apparently has to do with the fourth motion to compel. It's a very short clip, so as soon as Brennan gets back, I will play it. I have it pulled up here so that it's ready to go. Oh, when he gets here, crap. And he's back. So we got a tweet from Speedy Bird who said that we missed something and that there was a federal grand jury. So I wanted to pull up the part where we missed this.
Okay.
And play it. Can you make that full screen and play it? Share it and play it.
Do that. For defense's fourth motion to compel, Item 1, Subpart A, discusses federal grand jury materials. Those are exempt from disclosure by federal law, as well as Idaho Code 74-104, subsection 2.
You were muted. Say that again.
So what she said was, in the defendant's fourth motion to compel, in Item 1, Subpart A, that discusses federal grand jury materials that are exempt from disclosure by federal law, as well as Idaho Code 74-104 subsection 2.
Okay.
So
But
she's saying
we're talking about state laws and a federal grand jury.
She said by federal law and Idaho Code.
But she's citing Idaho Code. So do we know?
Okay. So item 1, subpart A is the piece of that motion to compel.
Right.
Where they're talking about a federal grand jury. And she's saying that is exempt from disclosure by federal law and Idaho Code 74-104 subsection 2.
Yeah.
So I went looking it up. What is Idaho Code 104 or 74-104 subsection 2? Well, the first thing that comes up on Google is this, and I'll send this over to you real quick, Brendan, so you can pull it up. And I'm lost. I don't know what the heck this means. Like,
I don't put a lot of emphasis in it because you only have one party talking about it and not the other. So to me, it just feels like it's
they're saying
a baseless argument.
What? They're saying the defense had it in their
okay, but then why didn't the defense respond?
I don't know.
All right.
Okay, so this is it. If you could share it.
Jeez.
Wait, this says Title 74. Is this it?
I have no idea. I don't even think there's anything we're gonna gain from like digging into this because one, it's exempt, it's closed. We're not gonna be able to find out anything that it's about. And the only thing that I'm curious about is like, are we trying to make the argument that there was some kind of additional secret grand jury that was a federally led grand jury?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Ariel said in the chat, it could be, and thank you for sharing this. She said she is about to graduate law school. It could be transcripts of testimony from a grand jury that isn't about Bryan Kohberger, but has someone testifying that's related to the case.
Got it. Okay.
It could be.
Got
it. This law just says that whatever records the defense is requesting are from a federal grand jury proceeding.
Okay. I got you.
Okay, so subsection 2. So this is Transparency and Ethical Government Public Records Act. Subsection 2 says the Judicial Council ratings and tabulated scores from attorney questionnaires of candidates for a judicial vacancy whose name are submitted to the governor and the summary prepared pursuant to section something Idaho Code shall be public. Like, that is so confusing.
Yeah.
That doesn't even make any sense to me.
I gotta be honest. I'm not trying to shut this topic down. I just have absolutely nothing to work on here. So I don't have a comment. I don't know what it could be. I don't know enough of this at all. I could give you theories all day of what it could be, but we don't have enough evidence for it to matter. Which is why I was referring to the defense didn't even add water to this plant, right? The prosecution came forward and dropped that little bit of information in there that there could be an additional grand jury statement that will never come forward. And then the defense didn't even talk about it. So I just have a hard time talking on a topic that we have nothing, like less than nothing.
Yeah, I agree. There's not much here, but it was brought to my attention, so I wanted to bring it up. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it could pertain to. It sounds like, some people in the chat have some good ideas of what they think it could pertain to, but who knows? Who knows? And yes, Ann Taylor did get cut off at one point, but I think she was actually talking about the CAS data at that time, but
yeah, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting for sure. I just have a hard time like investing a whole bunch of time going down this hole where we won't ever have anything on this. There's nothing we can find out about it. No?
I don't think there's a problem with throwing it around, considering it was cited as that the defense is citing something from a federal grand jury in their fourth motion to compel. They brought some kind of material from a federal grand jury in their motion to compel.
Yeah, and it wasn't just citing case law.
Dude, you heard the same part as me. It says, though, in the defendant's fourth motion to compel, item 1, subpart A, it discusses a federal grand jury materials that are exempt from disclosure, meaning it's secret. So no, it's not law.
Okay.
It's something that matters to the case. I don't know what it could be.
Okay.
But it's part of the motion to compel for some reason. It's not accessible to the public.
Okay. I hear you.
I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Now, do I think we're going to have any idea what it means? No, I don't.
I hear you. I just tend to try and how my mind works because I don't put value in this myself doesn't mean that it's not important. I'm not trying to suggest that. I just really try hard to stick to objective evidence and facts that I have in front of me, and possible theories that are maybe could be's cloud my perception of the case. And I listen, if I felt like I had some kind of evidence that could support anything having to do with that, I'd absolutely share it. I just don't.
Okay.
So, okay.
You don't have any idea of what a federal grand jury involved in this case could have to do with?
No. I don't think the feds are involved in this case, no matter how much evidence we throw forward into it. I don't think so. Because
but
we wouldn't have
crossed federal. He crossed state lines, though.
We would not have such crap evidence if the feds were involved. Which is why I brought forward Rex Heuermann's evidence. This evidence is a joke right now, literally. And I understand I'm being hard. And me saying that isn't suggesting Bryan Kohberger is innocent. But the evidence gathered, the way that the crime scene was handled, the way that they lost tapes and didn't do interviews, it is literally a joke. This was not Fed work. It wasn't. This is not how feds conduct themselves. That's just my opinion, though. I know that our thought rioters that watch us always give me a hard time about that. But I'm sorry. I've looked at a lot of federal cases, and when the feds get involved, the evidence is thorough. It's so thorough, like a lot of people look at it and they're like, whoa, that's shady, you know? But I mean,
this
wasn't Fed work.
I do hear you on that. Look, the evidence does seem like a joke. It doesn't seem.
So we can't have it both ways here.
It doesn't seem like it's put together very well. And federal cases usually are put together much better than this.
Like significantly better.
Significantly better. Yes, you're absolutely right on that. And I think that could be a very strong indication that the feds weren't involved enough, probably.
I think
if the feds are
Moscow
going,
PD.
Even if you want to think, okay, that Bryan Kohberger was framed somehow, the feds would do a much better job framing somebody.
Agreed.
A much better
We've
job.
seen frame up jobs by the feds too. Like it's not like I'm trying to say the feds are, you know what I mean? I am not trying to say that. I'm just saying that this does not land consistent from what we have seen with federal cases. No way.
Yeah. So I don't know, you guys, I truly don't know what this federal grand jury thing could be about. I think Ariel's suggestions in the comments that it could be another case, a totally different grand jury having to do with something totally different that they're just bringing up because this person has something to do with Kohberger. I think that's plausible. That's a really good suggestion. And thank you for, putting that out there. Because I think honestly that would make more sense to me than really anything else, unless and I'm not a lawyer and I don't have any experience in this, so I'm not a Fed, no matter what people want to believe. Can the federal government do something where they basically, like, if they're concerned, because this was a suggestion for a while out there. Do you remember when people were saying, well, if this case is lost, if the state of Idaho loses this case, that the feds could come in and try him again?
Yeah.
Could they have had a grand jury to indict him and they're just withholding that information until, like, wouldn't they just wait to have a federal grand jury until the case has failed? Or could they do that as like a backup plan and already have the indictment but be hiding it until they need to use it? Like, have they ever done anything like that?
Oh yeah, they've done things like that before.
Well, I can't
no
say
one's
that.
gonna like my answer. I'm just being upfront and honest with you guys. No one's gonna like my answer because I do not see the Fed involved here. I see very shady, shoddy police work being conducted by a couple ISP officers that we have very clear, provable evidence that has been conducted before in the past. And there is a very clear local involvement with where one of those officers grew up and the lead investigator in the Bryan Kohberger Idaho 4 case. Now, understanding those two things, I can't come to find out how there's a Fed connection here, other than the fact that there's feds in the area that were conducting the largest drug bust that we've ever seen, back to back to back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What if somebody involved in this case was involved in that?
If it was, then the feds wouldn't have been called hours and hours later. They would have been on top of it. No. I've thought that too.
No, I mean with the grand jury indictment. Somebody,
that you think there's a secondary
I'm not saying
drug
the killer.
Angle?
I'm not saying the killer had to do with drugs. I'm not saying the killings had to do with drugs.
Okay.
I'm not saying the killer had anything to do with drugs.
Yeah,
I'm saying,
I got you.
Is there somebody who is of close relation to the victims, who is somehow involved with the victims, who was a part of this federal grand jury, and it's being used in the case somehow?
Yeah,
for some reason.
I see people saying you can't do a double jeopardy. You're right, but however, there are loopholes and different charges that you can charge someone from state to federal, to where it's been done before on a few different occasions. I might even be able to cite a couple cases. No, I can't.
Okay, just look it up. Just look it up.
Not right now.
Yeah, not right now.
It's not the time.
We'll look it up another time.
But they could totally bring charges. So okay, sticking back to the topic here, going back to what was talked about specifically today. Do you have any other like enlightening moments or pieces of information?
Well, I posted a clip to our Twitter because there's one stretch of Anne's testimony that I just think was so captivating. And I posted it to our Twitter. And it's the one where she does mention that Bryan Kohberger's innocent. And I found her argument today very, very compelling and very moving. Mm-hmm. Like, I was very captivated with her everything she argued today. I think it made a lot of sense to me, all of it. Yeah. You want to know what's really sad though, that I feel is I looked at her performance and I don't see a performance that's above what I would consider standard. However, what I'm seeing from the prosecution is so messed up and so upside down that it's making Ann Taylor look like a champion. Because I don't think Ann Taylor's statement was like incredible in the way that I've seen other attorneys give incredible statements in court before. Yeah, and I don't mean that in a bad way or anything. This is only the pretrial process.
You got to remember, she's a public defender here.
A very experienced one.
Yeah, but
you know,
The attorneys that are going to be the most captivating, the best at grandstanding, the best at giving
She
presentations.
had her own law firm. She was a named partner in a law firm.
Are not public defenders normally.
Yeah,
I'm talking about standard practices.
I understand what you're saying, but she was a named partner in a law firm and then chose to go become a public defender.
Yeah,
which I think could be a testament to her caring about her work.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I'm just saying that when you compare them side to side, it was not like an incredible.
No, I think it was pretty good. Is it as incredible as some of the most famous lawyers out there? Maybe not, but this is only a pretrial hearing. This isn't trial.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I got you.
I don't know how much comparison you can really make there. This isn't a time where you need really, really compelling grandstanding in front of a jury.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just a little bit more critical when it comes to that information. And again, I think it lands to the fact that I'm not here to try and prove Bryan Kohberger is innocent, and I'm not here, trying to be pro Berger. I just didn't see anything outside of what my minimum expectation would be for an attorney, is all I'm saying. And why I feel like that's sad is because, in my opinion, all she did is argue human rights, which is the expectation of a defense attorney. And yes, she is doing incredible for what would be expected of a public defender. But everything she was saying made common sense to anyone who was watching. And the fact that common sense feels so incredible in a case like this says a lot about the case and the other people involved, is what I'm getting at.
Okay.
When you're average in a room full of below average, whatever, I'm not saying people because we aren't judging people, but when you're performing average and you're in a room full of others that are performing below average, that makes you look like you're the king of the court. You know what I mean?
I see what you're saying.
And I don't mean that as a stab either. But like, listen, the best attorneys out there are the ones that are being paid, $10,000 an hour and have a 99% success rate. You know what I mean?
She's making pretty good money, and she is the chief public defender. But I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's probably more compelling lawyers out there, but I think that she's a good one. I really do. And I think she's skilled.
Yep. I think she's doing a good job. I really do. What else? Anything else?
No.
Okay. So let me pull up mine here. Okay. All right. So as I was thinking today, I was trying to take a few notes, and I do have a few notes. As I was chewing on everything that was being said today, I can't help but continue to go back. No matter what part of this hearing I'm thinking about, I continue to go back to this idea that the entire hearing, they're arguing about presenting evidence openly about evidence that has already been presented in the PCA.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel fair in the entire hearing, the entire thing.
Yeah. I mean, that was mentioned multiple times by Anne, is that these
by
are
the judge too.
Yeah, that these are all things in the PCA. So why are we hiding them? What that Anne asked him numerous times, why can I not talk publicly about this evidence that's in the PCA?
Yeah.
Like, why can't I talk about the things the state is not giving us? What did she say exactly? Was
no,
withholding.
You're on
withholding.
It. Yeah. You have it right in what she's saying. And exactly. And one thing that looks bad on Judge, in my opinion, and I personally feel like Judge has been pretty good for being on the side of the public. However, in this hearing, it was not the case. And in multiple occasions, he made statements trying to include all the other evidence as if it were the IGG information. And I stated this earlier, and the more I think about it, the more I have a problem with it.
Wait, what? Say that again?
He tried to compare all this additional evidence with the IGG evidence.
Bill Thompson did?
No,
The
Judge.
Okay.
Judge said multiple times that, yes, this is such a tough case. This is going to be so evidence that's going to be so tough going through this, that, and the other, making it seem like it's a really big deal and really tough to deal with. And he continuously used and went back to like the IGG, because the IGG was effectively gagged and sealed for the right reasons. But you can't generalize a ruling on something like IGG that includes other people's name and personal information onto evidence that doesn't.
Right, because this is Kohberger's information, and if he wants it to be public, that's his right, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
I don't feel like it's fair that his wants aren't being cared about, basically, when it's his information.
Yeah.
It's his trial. If he wants it to be public, I feel like that's his right. And that's why I had such a problem earlier today with the judge seeming to keep saying, okay, that he was concerned if this information was discussed publicly, that it would be prejudicial to either the state or Kohberger. And I was like, prejudicial to the state? I have never heard a judge argue that.
Yes.
Because the judge is normally not concerned with the state's reputation like that, at least not publicly in front of all of us.
Yeah.
Like, which, I mean, I guess that's kind of good that he said it publicly. But
yeah, that was my next thing that I was going to talk about, actually, is that statement right there about the prejudicial judgment against the hearing. Yeah, so when he started making that statement, he said both sides have agreed to seal the discovery. The defense has asked to change it, but and that's when the prosecutor's representative, what's her name? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, Beatty? Is that Beatty? No, that's not Ingrid Beatty. This is a different one.
So. But anyway, she stands up.
Beatty's
and she
the
says,
blonde one.
This is the argument from the prosecution, is that they all agreed to have all of these details sealed. Now, along the way, the defense has changed their mind and now wants all of it unsealed. And that's a tactic they're using, okay? They're using the tactic to cast generalizations on everything. Because when you're in a court hearing, a rule or a pretrial hearing, you can ask to seal one thing, and that does not mean that you're asking to seal everything. So this idea that it's wrong for the defense to pick and choose what can be sealed and what can't, in my opinion, that should be flipped. What the prosecution is saying is wrong. That is how standard court practices work. Is you go through each piece of evidence and decide if that needs to be sealed or if it doesn't.
Exactly. I agree completely.
And that doesn't prejudice anything, because again, everything that was being argued about today was being argued on evidence that's in the PCA. All of it.
Yep. The cell information, the video of his car in the neighborhood, supposedly. And what was the other one? The IGG, but they kind of weren't arguing about that because they agreed to a closed hearing on that.
Yeah, yeah. I see somebody in the chat saying, listen, we are supporters of all beliefs, okay? I'm not here trying to say Bryan Kohberger is guilty, and I'm not here trying to say he's guilty. But
you mean innocent?
Or innocent, I'm sorry. Say that he's innocent. But, Bryan Kohberger is a human being. So for somebody to come out and be like, who cares about, take Bryan's name off it, you're essentially saying, who cares about human beings? What about human beings that have been victimized? I mean, look, this is what the judicial system is here for, and this is why we're here to try and find out if we got the right guy off the street, you know, and the only way that we're going to be able to deduce and figure that out is by looking at the evidence. I've said this from the beginning that Bryan Kohberger could be guilty. I am not opposed to that, you guys. However, the issue is, did the police do their job? Because they did something right doesn't mean that you ignore all these problems. And it's not even an argument. Look, I would open this up right now for anybody to come try and argue the fact that the police did a good job. And even if Bryan Kohberger is guilty, Bryan Kohberger can be as guilty as sin. And the police did a crap job. Let's be real here.
Yeah.
You know, it's not okay.
That's what I'm nervous about in this case is regardless of how this ends, at the end of the day, I don't want a killer on the streets. So, I mean, either way, like, I'm nervous about it because I do feel like the state's case is super shaky.
Yeah. So the whole point in this hearing, right, whether you believe Bryan Kohberger is guilty or not, is to make sure that we don't have a maniac that has the capability and training to kill 4 people in 20 minutes or whatever it figures out to be in a single night, murder 4 people in a single night, not even get the shock of ending one life. They continue 3 more times, like complete and total psychopath. All right. But we need to be sure that it's Bryan Kohberger.
Yeah,
because I don't want those people out in my society. I don't want to go to bed at night thinking, well, shoot, are my windows locked? Is my door locked? Can they get on my balcony? Can they parachute onto my balcony? And you know what I mean?
Gosh,
like,
don't even go there. Don't even go there. Okay, so
I don't want to go to sleep worried about that. Okay, and I depend on my law enforcement officers to prove in their investigation why I don't need to worry about that.
Yeah. And I also want to say that we don't want to forget the victims either. We very much care for the victims. I very much want justice for the victims, but I do not feel like justice will
I don't think
it is all about the victims.
Yeah.
I don't think justice will be had.
Brian's name doesn't matter.
If the truth, exactly. If the truth doesn't come out. And the truth, meaning the real truth, not convicting someone just because of bias. Like, look, the character assassination campaign on Bryan Kohberger has been horrific. It does not help him get a fair trial. It's not objective. It's not helpful at all in any shape or form. And it needs to stop. Yeah. And I think, honestly, the defense is trying to even the playing field here. I think that after the survey, they realized, oh my gosh, this is trouble. This is trouble. No matter where we go, we have a biased jury, and this is concerning.
That's a great call out right there.
So I think that's honestly could be a reason why we're seeing this shift from the defense is they realized after talking to Bryan Edelman, this incredible expert. I thought he was incredible.
I agree.
In his
Brian
field.
Did a good job, Bryan Edelman.
With the survey,
really
the jury survey in determining bias. I wonder if he didn't give them some pointers like, look, you guys got to open up your theory of the case a little bit. You got to start letting a little bit out to help even the playing field. So mainstream media will even start questioning their own narrative and putting these things out there. Because even now, there's been so many bombshells dropped in court, and the mainstream media is literally reporting on this still in a biased way, twisting the narrative and saying, oh, look at the state showing up the defense when it was literally the opposite. And any objective person who watched it could see that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I always want to remember Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. I think they're the most important people in this equation, but
they are the only ones that are worth being named right now. And that is
justice won't be had if we never get to the bottom of the truth. And it won't be had if we put an innocent man to death. So we need to be really sure that Brian's the guy. And I don't feel like I can be really sure Brian's the guy with what we're seeing right now. If the trial
Yeah.
is reminiscent of this at all, I will be more confused than I am now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree
And
with
I
you.
will not feel comfortable him being convicted and put to death.
I think those are really good call outs. Like, that is really good. And I didn't even think about looking backwards that far to take into account why the opinion and approach of the defense might have changed. It probably changed because they are seeing the outcome of the results of those surveys. And that is such a good call out. Now, yeah, when it comes to the prosecution and the defense, I think there's a very good possibility that those surveys help the defense realize what we're doing isn't working. It's not working because
the gag
like
order
I've said,
is biasing everybody.
like I've said from the beginning, you guys, I believe the most important value in any case that the world or the US cares about is perception. There is nothing out there that can make me feel any other way. I think grandstanding and public speaking is the number one skill you need to be able to land a case, aka OJ Simpson, okay? Or you know, look at the OJ case, or even now Scott Peterson's attorneys and what they're doing to get him out, even though I think he's super guilty. But those lawyers focused on grandstanding, focused on public perception. They are using the public issues, social issues to help back their arguments. Okay. It works. So public speaking and perception and grandstanding effectiveness in a trial, in my opinion, are the single most important things. Everything else. And is that a sad way to look at our judicial system? Yeah. It doesn't make it any less true, though. You know what I mean? I'm not pretending like our judicial system is perfect here. I don't think that it should be able to work that way. That's why we see cases where the rich don't get convicted, because the rich can afford great attorneys that have 99.9% success rate. You know what I mean? And they're great at these things and understand marketing. They understand society. They understand perception.
When they have the budget,
how to grandstand.
they have the budget to.
Oh, I don't even think it's about that.
Yeah, I mean, they have the budget to
salespeople
have
run
more,
the world.
To have more experts too, and they have good connections.
I mean, that is not what saved OJ. That is not what is helping Scott Peterson. It's a nice thought to think that, you know, they have the budget to make sure they can get the experts to prove that their case. No, these two men are guilty as sin. Okay. I think OJ.
Did you ever hear about his book?
OJ's guilty. Okay.
Did you ever hear about his book?
Yeah, I did. How he would do it? What if he did it? Whatever.
He said, if I did it, and then the family ended up selling his book and put "I did it."
Yeah. So,
as the title, even though the title was supposed to be "If I Did It," and he explained how he would have done it.
The evidence against OJ should have been an open and closed case, okay? Whether he's innocent or whether he's guilty. I know there's a lot of people that feel like he's innocent, but I do think more people feel like he's guilty. And how did they win? Do you think they won by experts? Or did they win because they controlled the public perception and used social issues to back their narrative in court? It's the perception and social issues. Absolutely. Absolutely. They included race into it, okay?
They did.
And they used the public's perception and how race was being dealt with at that time. They were killers, grandstand maniacs. They would get in front of the courtroom, and if you gave them an inch to talk, they were taking a mile, and they weren't done after court. As soon as they walked out, they were having full presentations to the mainstream media. Like, that is what won. So when we look at the Idaho 4 case, reeling it back in here, okay, you have the mainstream media that is already driving the narrative that Bryan Kohberger is guilty, okay? And I don't think, I know all our thought writers on here understand the importance and the benefits of getting your media and news coverage and crime coverage on YouTube in an unbiased forum like the True Crime Talk Show and Thought Riot Podcast. However, a lot of people out there in the US and the world right now still don't understand the benefit of doing that. They are still turning on the radio in the morning. They are still turning on the radio on their Spotify. They are still turning on their TV on the free networks and watching that mainstream media. That mainstream media narrative right now is controlling the public perception of who Bryan Kohberger is and what this case is really about. And the only way that's going to change is controlling the public's perception of this. It is the only way. So this idea that what Judge was saying, that he doesn't want to prejudice the public, he doesn't want to create prejudice against Bryan Kohberger. Listen, that ship has sailed. It is gone. That ship is gone. It's already prejudice. Now, how are we going to fix that to be able to have a fair trial?
Yeah,
that's all I care about. I literally don't
all I care about too.
If Brian's name is Brian, I don't care if his name's Brendan. I don't care if it's any name. Like, that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is, do we have the person that killed 4 people in the dead of night
in
that
such
night,
a brutal,
sitting there in the defense
dude,
chair?
This
or
crime,
defendant chair,
and this crime is so scary. Like, this crime is really, really scary. Whoever did this
terrifying.
should not be on the streets. Like, that is such a risk to the public. It's so terrifying to me having this person be on the streets. But yeah, I agree. I think that the public perception matters a lot more than we think. And here's something that I've been pondering in my head watching the Karen Reed case, which I know we still need to have our overview and talk about what's been going on in court, which we will soon. But something like, I think it was today, the judge addressed the jury and said, "Hey, jurors, I just want you to know that what the lawyers are saying, their questions, those are not evidence. The response to the question, the lawyer's question with the response is evidence." So she said, if somebody, if the lawyer asked a question basically, and that the witness said no, then that's null and void. There's no evidence there. You can't take the lawyer's question or implication through their question as evidence.
Yeah.
Well, that made me start thinking, because lawyers absolutely do that. They will ask a question that they know will be objectionable and be stricken from the record just because they know it will possibly resonate in the juror's mind. I see it all the time, and I know what they're doing. They're mentioning it just because they want that narrative out there, even though they know it's going to get retracted. We can't erase things like that.
Yeah.
The jurors will be like, "Oh, wait, what? What did they just ask?"
Too.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I see those manipulation tactics in court all the time. And I think it's silly to think that, and Brian Edelman, again, was fabulous at explaining how jurors at the end can't tell what they saw in the media from what they saw in court.
Right.
They
Which
end
is
up
why
mixing it up.
perception is the most important thing.
Exactly. They start mixing it up in their heads, even if they're not biased. Because they don't have to not know about this case, you guys. They can know about the case. They just have to be
it's not they can know about it. It's that they do know about it. And the idea that you're going to get jurors that don't know anything about a case that they're entering is get out of here.
They just have to determine if those jurors are biased or not and pick the ones they don't think are biased. But they can know about the case. But at the end, for them to mix up things they saw in the media from what they saw in court, that's scary with how much coverage this case has gotten, especially incredibly biased coverage.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's another reason too, you guys. Like, okay, so hear me on this. And I am not calling anyone out, but this idea that the FBI is involved in this conspiring thing. Okay. So how many people out there do you think get on a tin hat tangent and think that there's hundreds of people in a conspiracy to condemn one man?
No, I don't think that's what happened.
No, not do you think that happened? It's how many people do you think would believe that would happen?
I'd say,
remember, we're talking averages, so social averages, 40, not the minorities.
40%.
Oh gosh, I think it's way less than that opt into conspiracy.
You think it's less than
Oh
that?
yeah, absolutely. I do not think the general public, like your average blue collar, white collar people, have the time to care at all about conspiracy. I think that they might have, you know, extra time here and there and joke about it while they're talking at lunch about how silly it is, this or that, or like look at, you know, just some of the conspiracies like Pizzagate. And I'm not saying these are true or they aren't. Okay. 9/11. We're talking whatever, Epstein Island, like all these conspiracies are massive, massive,
I mean,
massive
Epstein
deals.
Island is true.
And so none of this matters whether it's true or not. It's the public's perception and how it's managed here. Now, when they go to a case, right, and you have a bunch of people that think Bryan Kohberger could be innocent, I am not going to say names at all, but we have 100% confirmation here that multiple content creators are tied to law enforcement, okay? And these certain content creators are absolutely pushing and driving this narrative that the FBI is involved. But when you take a step back from that, and why I fight against it so hard is realistically, do we really think it's possible in Moscow, Idaho, that 100 people are involved in creating a conspiracy to condemn one man? Realistically.
No, but I
No
don't think that's how it
way.
works. I think even if he were to be framed, that's not how it would
Okay,
work.
then what would be okay? What would be the FBI's benefit here? Why would the FBI break the law?
I don't know. Why have they ever framed anybody before?
I can tell you in any situation why they did certain things.
Okay, can you think of a framing case with the FBI? What's a famous
Yeah,
framing case?
Yeah. Martin Luther King's a very famous one.
They didn't frame him for a crime.
I mean, yeah, they did. They arrested him on 2 different occasions. They did.
No, I
Yes, they
mean
did.
something to this extent.
I mean, you again going back to that bombing situation with that kid where they were trying to infiltrate certain groups in that were connected to this kid, where this kid wasn't going to attack anybody, but was kind of walked into it or whatever. And I can pull up the details of that crime, but like, listen, that's not what's going on here. I'm sorry, but it's not what's going on here. And people that want Bryan Kohberger convicted benefit by jumping into the pro-burger pool and adding a bunch of factors that just aren't possible.
I do think there is this. Look, I've felt this way for a long time because I've seen it with my own eyes. People come into our chat, people come into other content creators' chat that I've never seen their username before, or even some that are around a lot. And they will just drop a piece of information. They will say one sentence.
Oh, I don't even think it's that.
And then people will be like, oh, wait, what? And then all of a sudden I'll see 10 videos on it.
Yeah.
And I also will see certain creators that I think are part of this bringing things up. And
I know a couple of guaranteed 100%
I do think
and all. I'm just not willing to dox.
I do think there's something going on here with controlling the opposition, controlling the narrative for this pro-burger movement.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Okay, what they're doing is they're controlling public perception, okay? And again, there is a lot to gain from the side of the investigators, from the side of the college, from the side of Moscow PD, from the side of ISP, from the side of Fry. Think of all the things they have to gain here. This is an attorney's make or break trial, okay? Bill is going to gain a ton. Chief Fry is going for sheriff, you guys, which is a public office, and that's an increase. He's going up the chain, okay? You have a lead investigator that's only been in the law enforcement with Moscow PD for 2 years. You have another one that has multiple fraud claims against him in ISP that traveled. Why did he travel 6 or 8 hours to be heavily invested in this crime when there were tons of other ISP officers that were way closer? Because there's a personal connection there. So there's a lot of buy-in as to why the prosecution and the investigators need this to go the way they want it to go, okay? Now, including the FBI here is, in my opinion, just a way to take poo, throw it at the wall, and see what sticks, because it still covers some of that wall, right? You're including a bunch of information. Then you have, like, what you have here is you have regular people. You have regular people, and those regular people will start seeing information where they think maybe Bryan Kohberger could be innocent. So then they go looking in these areas like, oh, I heard my friend was telling me Thought Riot Podcast was talking about like how messed up the evidence is in the Bryan Kohberger case. Let me hop over to Thought Riot Podcast and watch what they're putting out there. And then they see in our chat, like, just gnarly tin hat is conspiracy as can go. Everyone's involved here. FBI's involved, ISP's involved, Moscow's involved, the entire college, all the officers are involved. Do you really think they're going to read that and be like, makes sense? No. Of course, the opposition puts people into groups and pretends to agree with what they're saying and adds crap to the well. Like, it's super obvious.
It is super obvious, and it's happening all over these platforms.
It happens in our chat every night.
Yeah.
Every single night. And it is so obvious. But it's important for people to understand those differences. And that is why people love to try and say, oh, you know, Brendan, you're saying this, this, and this. Actually, I'm saying whatever words come out of my mouth, but you can believe whatever you want, you know. It just doesn't help when you're trying to stay objective. It doesn't help anything. And it's the reason I'm going to continue to fight against this idea that the FBI is involved. Give me one real piece of evidence. Show me one, and I will be willing to consider it. Because I can show you a ton of evidence that shows they did a crap investigation. I can show you a ton of evidence where it's pretty clear that this cast and cellular information isn't what it is as what's implied in the PCA. We can show you evidence all day long that there's huge concerns with this case locally. But can anyone provide evidence that the FBI is doing something shady and or illegal other than the IGG, which they tied to their TUI? And there is no, I don't have an answer for that one other than maybe they're trying to protect their proprietary information because Othram is their key lab, which again, that's not necessarily shady. It just sucks. And I do wish that it was public, but anyways,
yeah,
that was a rant.
It was a rant, but I think it was an important one because I agree with everything you said. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is.
I just think we have to be careful
look,
tying things to this
I
case
understand.
that are like
I have an open,
not objective.
I agree, but I do see weirdness with the FBI, but I understand that that could just be what's being reported by the local authorities, making it seem that way so that they're not taking the heat.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So while I'm open to the possibility of the feds doing something wrong, it doesn't mean that that's what it is. I see that there is way more of a possibility it's all local. And they are right now putting it off on the feds.
Right now, there's a public perception, a generalization in the U.S. right now with fighting political groups, okay, that one of those political groups are anti-FBI. Like, that's a general consensus in that political group, okay? So it's a very easy blame to pass off.
Yeah, but the other problem with the FBI is, like, just like with this whole grand jury thing, like, what the heck is that? Like, with the cast report and this whole hearing today, okay, all we heard is the judge saying, well, we can't get things from people who don't want to give it to us. You know, Bill Thompson saying, look, I've asked the feds if this exists, and they're saying it doesn't exist. You know, we've been going through this whole process for months. They keep pointing at the feds and saying they just don't want to give it to us. They are saying it doesn't exist, which, yeah, I think to all of us hearing that, we're like, are the feds messing with this case?
I agree.
Are they corrupt? Like, what are
agree.
they doing? Why won't they just give them the evidence?
I agree with you. But then we see Ann Taylor to say, and I don't know if you remember,
She's putting it on the state, not the feds.
I was open to that 100%. If you guys rewatch the last hearing, I was totally open to this idea that the FBI could be to blame for that. I just shared my concerns that I don't think that is the case. Now, when we saw this hearing, dude, so brutally obvious, like it's insane. And you know, it's interesting, since we're talking about this topic, you guys, like, we're having the most issues probably that we've had with our show. Here, I'll share it.
Okay, I gotta go grab my. Have a hang now. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Watch. I'll show you guys. Yeah, it's super interesting. You can see the dips, and that's people trying to control whenever we're talking about topics that they don't want us talking about. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. But so I just caution people to watch out for that, right? Because who wants to be taken as a fool? Who wants to be taken as a fool? I know I don't. And I want to know that I don't have a psychopath out there on the streets. I don't think anyone wants to have a psychopath in their backyard, or possibly out there in the streets. You know, it's pretty insane. Oh, geez, that doesn't help nothing, huh? It's pretty insane that does that let me? No. It's pretty insane that that it's that hard to get objective evidence, right? It's wild. And I don't know. It's just, if we want to be able to look at our judicial system, if we want to be able to look at our justice system from a place that we can depend on them, and they can be trustworthy, honest, and objective. I mean, we've got to see it. We've got to be able to see it. So the only way that we're going to be able to see it is by holding them accountable to the information that's being presented. Some of the other issues I had. Okay, let's see here. What do you guys think about the information about the relationships and the fact that Judge came out and was like, oh, by the way, you guys are such good attorneys, and you know, you have been playing so nice lately, and I just need you guys to treat each other like you were the past couple of times. That leans into that fact that we have been talking about with Judge and how he, you know, he's a nice guy. He's like the nicest grandpa ever in the world, period, point blank, right? And it's interesting to see what, hang on. It's interesting to see how he's trying to control the relationship and or narrative of the public in this case. It's interesting for sure. Look, you see that right there? Bam. Bam. That means people don't like what we're talking about. Oh no. All right, so going back into this case here. So in the hearing today, what do you think about, oh, you know what? Okay, how involved do you believe the feds are in the Bryan Kohberger case. We have 119 votes here. Testing evidence only, which is my personal opinion also, you guys. Semi-involved in decisions, very involved in decisions, or other. I am about to end that, so anybody get your last remaining votes in. How involved do you believe the feds are in the Bryan Kohberger case? Listen, I know I just gave a big long rant, you guys, but if you've been with us for a while now, you know that we don't want an echo chamber. That is the last thing ever in the world that we want, is an echo chamber here. So we don't want people to necessarily think what we think. I don't think that is beneficial towards progressing the Thought Riot and the think tank. So, you know, I'm hoping people are just giving their honest answers, and this helps to get an understanding in the public's eye and perception of the involvement, or the belief in this case, of Fed involvement. Get those last votes in. All right, end it. Let's see what we got cooking here, you guys. Hey, Strange Suspicion. Strange Suspicion, for those of you that don't know, is another content creator. I know we've shared a couple of their links. Here you go. I'm going to copy and paste the link to their channel real quick. But great stuff. Awesome content. I think they cover true crime and correct me if I'm wrong, Strange Suspicion. I don't remember if you do other content on that channel too, or if you guys have a separate no, it is. Okay, so you guys do both on this channel. Okay, yeah. But I just shared the link there. Thank you, you guys.
Oh yeah, Strange Suspicion gave us a shout out.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. I asked you to remind me to say something multiple days ago, but now Strange Suspicion is here.
Days ago? I thought it was like yesterday.
No, I think it was days ago. I'm pretty sure Strange Suspicion.
We both have very bad memories, so I apologize.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Strange Suspicion gave us a shout out. So make sure you guys check that link out. Awesome. She did, content.
And thank you very much. And shout out back to you.
And I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm literally the worst. Okay, so we just resolved that, and we have the Q&A. Oh, AR's here too. Awesome. AR.
Yes, where is he?
I don't know. Someone said AR's here. Okay, so let's go into that.
Yeah, shout out to AR Hayes too, guys. If you haven't checked him out, definitely do.
Yes, please do. AR is in here quite a bit with us, and content is phenomenal. Check him out. How involved do you believe the feds in the how involved do you believe the feds are in the Bryan Kohberger case? Very involved in decisions, 32%. Testing evidence only, 30%. Semi-involved in decisions, 23%. And 13% voted other.
That's all over the place. That is like one of the more all over the place polls we've ever had, honestly. Usually there's one that takes a bigger majority than that.
I agree.
That's really interesting. People don't know what to think about the Fed's involvement in the case. So it's been stated many times by the local police that the FBI only assisted in processing evidence and assisted when they needed help, like with the canvassing of videos, analyzing it, the tips, taking tips and processing them. We know, obviously, they did something with the IGG. We know, obviously, they assisted Payne somehow with cell phone information, but they've never been the lead, which I think is that means they weren't making key decisions.
Yes.
Who was making key decisions? Moscow Police Department. They're the lead. They're making the decisions. Everyone else has to follow. Everyone else is assisting. Now, ISP, obviously, I think is second to MPD in this whole equation, and then FBI's last. So, yeah, I think the FBI was providing services. But I think at the end of the day, if there is anything corrupt going on here, it's going to fall on MPD's shoulders. Their lead on the case.
I mean, I guess we'll find out. We don't really know for sure. It just makes me concerned is all. But I agree with you that there's no way for them not to have blame. And I think they should, in my opinion, too. But
I mean, the Idaho State Police concerns me a lot, too, with things we've seen in other cases.
Oh, I agree. 100% I agree with you. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead. And I wanted to ask you a question, but what does that have to do with? Are you going to talk about that? Or did you already talk?
This is what I posted earlier. So we have Q&A questions and we have this poll. So I posted on our community tab, Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger. Did you watch our Bryan Kohberger hearing video today on 5/2 of 2024? Do you have questions, comments, concerns you would like us to bring up tonight? So yeah, I was just going to highlight it. No, I was just showing the people that are watching our show.
You're not sharing that on screen. Did you mean to share the poll?
Yeah, of course.
Huh?
I'm meaning to share this
intentionally
on screen because while you were away, I was telling people, no, I'm not meaning to. I have on here what I want on here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if you wanted to share the poll or not. I was making sure that you knew it wasn't on the screen.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to share that. I heard you.
Yeah, my rant. So, but yeah, if you want to bring that up, you have an option there, or you have the Q&A here, and we will get into that.
Yeah, you guys, if you don't know how to use the Q&A, it's a blue drop down at the top of the chat. It'll say Q&A on it. You just click on it and you should be able to ask a question, and it'll go to a special place where it'll all be in one section and we can read it and respond to it. So I was going to ask you, do you feel like Bill Thompson was pointing his fingers at the feds? Like it's their fault, not ours?
Of course. Yeah.
You do?
It's been stated multiple times.
Do you think the judge was pointing his finger at the feds?
Well, of course, but you got to remember that the judge only knows what has been told to him. So as far as the judge knows, the prosecution has shared everything, absolutely everything. And
he's very good faith with them. He seems to believe them.
It's the judge's job to be good faith with both sides. You come to court good faith. I don't think there's anything wrong in that. You're good faith until, you have a reason not to be. I think that's the premise of our court system.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good faith until you have evidence that you shouldn't have good faith anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, look, we talked about this earlier with the subpoenas. So we pulled it up after the hearing, and it was an article about obtaining information from the FBI. And you guys, it's very difficult. Like, this is not an easy thing to do. It is hard. Like, they are not overstating that. It's true. It's hard to get the federal government to comply with subpoenas. There's the whole TUI.
I don't think that's the issue. Cast report science is not TUI science.
I understand that. So basically, the judge said, "I'm signing the subpoenas today." He's sending these subpoenas. They're sending these subpoenas to federal agents. They do not have to respond. They can ignore them or straight out deny them. And they have the right to do that.
Yeah, they can.
So I know I saw people that seemed confused in comments, thinking that would do something. It might not. It might not do anything, like, at all. The federal government doesn't have to respond. So there's a lot of hoops that are going to have to be jumped through. I don't know if what Bill Thompson is saying is true, that they've been doing this for months already or not. I have no idea. I hope that they've been doing it for months, because hopefully that'll make the process go faster, because if they haven't been, this is going to take a really long time, most likely.
Yeah. No, I
because
agree.
they did make that statement, you know, that they should have requested this 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So when did how did the state not request the cast report until now? How is that even possible?
Yeah,
that makes me think they were never going to rely on a cast report.
We can get into the cast report. I think the whole cast report is fraudulent. I think everything about it is totally fraudulent. There is something wonky with it from top to bottom.
So what do you mean when you say fraudulent? Like, how could it be fraudulent?
I mean, it's been exploited. They've taken the potential facts of the cast report and have blown them out of proportion. You know, completely and totally blown it out of proportion.
So you think, okay, but in the PCA it says Payne called a cast agent.
Uh-huh.
And got direction from him.
Uh-huh.
And that's how he tracked Kohberger. So what do you mean it's overblown? Like, what are you even talking about?
So I just feel like we're going back into science that we've talked about before, but that's okay. So when the cast report is created, it starts with an initial type of science, and that is the RTT time and the CDR data, right? They're also going to pull any of the triangulation data and anything that they can get on the back end system with the network companies. I believe that they were probably able to get that information, and they were able to say, hey, Payne, I show that Bryan Kohberger was connected to this tower in this town at this time, yada, yada, yada. And Brett Payne took that, doing an investigation like this, and said, of course he's connected to that tower because he's in Moscow and because he's stalking these victims, right? And then they started doing research on his car and thought, well, if he's connected to this tower, Mr. Cast Agent, is it possible that he's actually showing over here on this tower? And the downside of having so few towers in that area is there is no overlap to verify.
I see what you're saying.
So as easily as you could say Bryan Kohberger was somewhere, you could say he was somewhere else. And that probably sounds all jumbled and mixed up, you guys, and I apologize for that. But I need a chart to be able to explain it. So when there's only one tower that he could be connected to, it depending on how that triangle is set up for that triangle, right? Because every tower is a triangle. It depends on one side. So one side is 120 degrees, right? And each side, 120 times 3 is 360 degrees, 360 degree coverage. So as long as you're on that 120 degree side, you can be anywhere in those 120 degrees. 120 degrees is a massive amount of coverage.
Yes.
So can you say Bryan Kohberger is connected to this tower and he's in the 120 degree range in the same way that you could say Bryan Kohberger was actually over in this area, still being connected to that 120 degree angle? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting for sure.
It is. So hold on, let me look at my notes.
Yeah.
So what did you think about the state's argument that it is Bryan's right to have a public trial, but not a trial in the media? That is not his right. Because I think that is kind of a double negative. Like it's kind of a gosh, I'm forgetting the phrase right now.
Yeah, that's
It's
what I was saying earlier.
It kind of a double negative, yeah.
Because they're in the trial. This is part of the trial.
Well, a public hearing, a public trial, public hearing is, that's not even what I'm talking about, what you're talking about. It is in the media. Like if it's public, it's in the media.
Okay.
So what's the point of making it some kind of, how are you making that different?
Yeah.
Public is public. It's public information, meaning the press has the ability to cover it.
Yeah, I hear you.
At least that's what it should mean.
My one statement is that it's already public. This is a public trial, okay? And see right there. Bam. So this is a public trial. And the trial is, I just don't like the idea that they're trying to define the difference between the pre-trial type hearings and getting ready for the trial and from the trial. Listen, you wouldn't be having the pre-trial hearings unless you were going to have a trial. It is all part of it.
I know, but I don't think that's a winning argument.
I do.
I think that the trial is different than the pre-trial process because that's once the jurors are seated. Those are the fact finders of the case. They are the one who's going to decide if he's guilty or not. So I just don't think I don't think it's the same. A hearing isn't the trial. Pre-trial hearing is not the trial, in my opinion. And I don't think that's really an opinion. I think that's, I don't know.
No, for me, that doesn't make sense because you're still talking about the same evidence. You're still talking about the same arguments. You're still talking about the same experts. You're still talking about the same defendant. You're still talking about the same investigation. You're still talking about the same judge. It is all part of the trial. It is just not the jury trial. So the fact that, well, Judge, Bryan Kohberger is allowed to have a jury trial, but everything up until then, we are going to ridicule his rights and give him nothing, to the point we're giving character assassination, controlling the media, not letting any information out because nobody deserves to have rights in pre-trial, only jury trial. What? That is insane. What do you mean? It is all part of the trial. It's just not the jury trial.
Yeah, I think there's
but I understand what you're saying.
There's
I get where you're
there
coming
to
from.
Protect evidence that could be prejudicial from getting out there. I think there's good arguments for it.
I agree with you, depending on the science, though. Depending on what the evidence is, and the cast report is not up for subjectivity. Not if you have a real expert and scientist doing their real job.
But the thing is that the media will take that objective evidence and make it subjective and make it mean something that it may not mean.
Yeah, I get that. But that is a risk the defendant makes, not the prosecution.
I agree that should be up to the defendant. Yeah.
Said that they want this hearing open.
I agree. I think that's what matters the most out of all of this. So
that whole argument is pointless. It's the argument they're making to try and say that Bryan Kohberger doesn't deserve rights unless it's part of the jury part of the trial, the jury trial.
So there was also this argument that the defense has suddenly changed course. The state was like, look, they've been sealing everything up until now, and all of a sudden they just want to unseal things and make things public. Why do they want to do that now? You know what I mean? Well, then Anne threw it back at them and was like, well, why do they want to be so secretive now? They said to spread this PCA far and wide. But now that we're talking about this evidence, they want to close these hearings?
Yeah.
And keep it secretive? She threw it back at him.
Yeah.
So did the defense suddenly change course? No, I actually don't think so. I think that, look, motion to compel 1 through 3 were able to be read. Like in the beginning of this, there were a lot. You guys, if you go back and look at the declarations, if you look at motions to compel early on in this case, there was a ton of little things in there. Like there's one that Logston wrote that was, whoa, like insane. Bicca Barlow's, whoa. You know, there's many of them, documents that really were bombshells in the beginning of this case. And then things started getting sealed. And I did hear Anne make the argument that they were sealing things for expediency, like to get things moving quickly. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think there's been this shift, but I think they're going back to how they were, but even stronger on the transparency. I don't think that they've been like, oh, let's keep everything super secret and then all of a sudden just expose everything. I don't think that's what's been going on, because we've known there were issues with the Cass report early on. There were implications of Brady. We've known a lot of these things could be issues from the beginning, and a lot of that's because of the defense's filings. So I don't think this is an all of a sudden thing. I don't think that argument holds water. But I do think there was a shift that in the beginning, the state and the defense were very much at odds. Then I think there was this time of agreement and tolerance and understanding and getting along. Sure. And then now all bets are off. I don't think there is that anymore.
Yeah.
Something broke that.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's clearly things going on behind the scenes. We can't know.
Yep. I agree. It is insane. It doesn't make any sense. And like I've said from the very beginning, I personally believe that, okay, add another. I personally believe that,
what my question is, why didn't they have a what is it called when they have the in chambers meeting? Gosh.
In chambers meeting?
Yes. Where they request an in chamber meeting.
What, convene?
No. There's a word for it. Jesus.
I have no idea. I'm not sure. You're just talking about a private meeting?
No. Yes, with the judge, where they both go back there. There's a special name for it.
I don't know. I just know that Bill Thompson needs to hire me to teach them how to speak, man. Their in court speaking is so bad. Oh man, that is the biggest area of opportunity for the prosecution. They would get so much further if they were relatable, if they were
an ex parte hearing. So why didn't they have an ex parte about this and then have a public hearing?
Yeah,
is my question, because the judge chose to close the hearing, and Anne said they're going to be bringing witnesses for both of these motion to compel hearings. There's going to be exhibits. And he's saying they need to talk about this first before, and then maybe we can open it up. Does that mean he's going to randomly start streaming it halfway through the hearing? Or does that mean they're going to have another motion to compel hearing where they're going to let the public see? I just don't understand. Why didn't they do something ex parte? Why didn't they have some kind of private meeting so that they could have a public hearing that we could all watch?
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
I don't know why that wasn't brought up. What? The judge can't have ex parte communication. They already have had ex parte communication, though. It's been requested, and I believe they've had it. I think both parties have to be there, which is fine. That's what I'm saying.
All right, I gotta go to the restroom real quick.
Okay, it's in camera. By or for one party. Okay, so you're saying, okay. Maybe I'm not understanding what it means then. Okay, what is ex parte? The communication occurs when a party to the case or someone involved with the party talks or writes to or otherwise communicates directly with the judge about the issues in the case without the other party's knowledge. Judges may not permit or consider ex parte communications in deciding a case unless expressly allowed by law. This ban helps judges decide cases fairly. Okay, so what? I thought there's been requests of ex parte something where they had a meeting in chambers. So what? It would be an in-camera hearing. So Ariel, it would be an in-camera hearing where both parties attend then and look at the evidence. Whatever it's called. All I'm saying is I know they have the ability to go in chambers and have a meeting where they can talk about this before the hearing and get on the same page or whatever they need to do, and then have a public hearing. Like, why wasn't this suggested is all I'm asking. Whatever it's called. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what it's called. I thought I knew what ex parte meant, but clearly I don't. So.
All right. So let me see here. Okay. Now getting back to questions. Okay. About this hearing, I have so much to ask. I don't even know where to begin. Some questions. Is subpoenaing the FBI normal? Yeah, kind of normal from what I've seen. It doesn't mean that they're going to get any movement with it, though. And I don't think they're hoping to get any movement. What if Bill Thompson can't provide proof that what is in the PCA is supported by actual evidence? Unfortunately, in our current judicial system, especially in Idaho, they don't have to confirm the PCA, which is shady.
What do you mean they don't have to confirm it?
They can throw away any of that evidence that was talked about in the PCA
and
go a completely different route.
That's true.
And it's shady.
Yeah, they don't have to support their own PCA. And sending subpoenas to the FBI isn't normal. I mean, it happens. But again, they don't have to respond to it. And there's a lengthy process that has to happen to be able to get any answers out of the FBI. Look up TUI regulations.
Yep.
You'll learn a lot about the process and why it's so difficult. It's a protection for the FBI. And honestly, it doesn't feel fair. It feels like there should be an easier process, especially when they are assisting in a case like this, for the court to be able to get information.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Doesn't feel totally fair.
Okay, so hang on one second.
Okay. So the video, I'm thinking about that video a lot. And I really...
Yeah, because that's literally how they place him there. I don't know what evidence they're going to have at all if
they can't put him there on video. If the video is that crap, what are they going to do? How are they going to make this case make sense?
They aren't going to. There is no way.
This case is not going to make sense if they don't have video or cell data or... I mean, look, the DNA might be the last saving grace.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything we've been talking about.
But again, it can be so subjective. If you haven't seen where we covered the Colorado scandal with a DNA expert who, what is her name again?
Oh gosh, hang on. I'll pull it up.
She she messed up so many cases. It's like it's in the thousands of cases that could potentially be affected by her actions with DNA. She manipulated the data. And we've been talking about this way before we even knew about that with a TED Talk that I highlighted in a video a while back.
Say her name there? No.
And this guy in this TED Talk was talking about how subjective reading electropherograms is, and those should absolutely be turned over to the defense. You know, the defense needs to see those. They need to see, I think, all of the IgG information, because I do think that
Missy Woods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Missy Yvonne or something Woods, something like that.
Yes. So this
And
here.
she was considered a rock star.
Yep.
in
Yvonne
the DNA
Missy Woods. Bam. There we go.
She was considered a complete and total rock star.
Yeah.
Solving so many cases, you know, catching all the bad guys.
Right.
And then come to find out she's been manipulating the data all this time.
Whole time.
And she's literally just biasing the data. She's making it fit whatever narrative the investigators need, which we talked about this in that video where the TED Talk guy said, you know, prosecutors, lead investigators are coming in while this is being analyzed, while these DNA tests are being analyzed, and giving their input and biasing the examiner.
Yeah.
His solution was blind testing. Have the, you know, DNA experts analyzing this information with zero knowledge of the case and no communication with the investigators.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely what needs to happen. They should know nothing about the case. It should be only about the science. Is this inconclusive or does it match? And with what percentage of certainty can you say it matches? This octillion number is way overblown. And in that video where we talk about that Colorado lady, we talked about the inflated numbers, statistics that they give, because she did the same thing.
Yeah.
She would give inflated numbers and percentages of saying it matches, you know, whatever amount. And there's no scientific basis for it. It's just to make it sound good.
I know it.
So hearing that octillion number, I think for both of us was really concerning when we first heard it, because that sounds like an inflated number. And if you have legitimate evidence, if you know this is Bryan Kohberger's DNA, there's no reason to give an inflated number.
Yep. Need to see what that says.
You should just give the facts, not say, oh, it's, you know, 1 in whatever octillion, some super impossible number, just to make the jury think, oh my gosh, there's no possible way, you know, this has to be Bryan Kohberger's. I mean, look at the mainstream media. It totally worked.
Judge doesn't know the details of things, so it kind of makes sense he wants the details before making it public, but I don't like it.
Well, he said he read through things and knew exactly what they were talking about, though. He knew their concerns.
Yeah, I mean,
he said he's read through whatever, he knows their concerns. So I don't know, maybe.
I don't agree, because in my opinion, this is the argument I gave earlier, okay, is do you remember my example where I was talking about how we own our own data? When you search something on Google on your phone, that search is yours, okay? It is yours. And if you select the right settings to make sure that isn't shared, then nobody else gets access to it, okay? Well, I look at the evidence as exactly the same way. That evidence that is against Bryan Kohberger is his. It is his. So he gets to say what can be done with it.
I agree. I think that he should be able to have more of a say too. That's a good point. I've been feeling that way this whole time. I don't understand how the state can even argue against it, honestly.
Yeah, you just selected. Someone said, why does Brendan care so much what we think of the FBI?
Sick of it.
Yeah, they must be a first-time watcher or something.
Yeah, he
'Cause
gave a
I
detailed
don't-
explanation earlier. He doesn't care what you think of the FBI. He's just expressing his opinion in this case and not thinking the FBI is involved in any kind of framing or setup or corruption in this case.
Yeah.
There's not really an incentive for them to, and if you rewind, we talked about it extensively. You gave a really good explanation of why you're fighting that narrative, and I understand why. Now, I understand it better.
I mean, we can just play the semantics game and say, okay, why do you care that you think I care that what everyone thinks about the FBI? I mean, it goes both directions. You know, you can get all philosophical and say, you know, that people who care whether somebody's making an argument about the FBI, they're the ones who care about it. When, listen, we're a think tank, right? So these ideas have to be shared. They have to be talked about. They have to be presented. The goal isn't to control somebody's opinion.
No.
Especially when our number one statement on here is that, one, don't trust me. Okay. Do not trust this show. Don't trust anything that comes out of my mouth in the same way that you shouldn't trust anybody out there that's making content. Okay. Because there is a financial element to making content, which means everything I'm saying could technically be bought. Okay. So I'm just hoping to give information to make people want to go research themselves, you know?
Yeah, no, it's not like it's going to hurt our feelings if you think we're wrong, disagree with us, think the FBI is corrupt. You know, you guys need to think for yourself. And that's what we advocate for on our show. We don't want to come on here and be like, we're the experts and you need to listen to what we have to say because we're telling you the truth and everyone else is lying to you. And, you know, this is where you come to hear it first. This is where you come to hear the truth.
I suggest
these are
you
the
don't
facts.
trust us.
We're telling you all the facts. That's not the intention. The intention is a think tank. It's to think outside the box.
Opposite.
The intention is to give you food for thought.
Yeah, the intention is the opposite. Everything that comes out of my mouth, the entire goal is to make you not trust me. Everything that comes out is just do, you know? Don't trust nothing.
So Elliot asked, are you 100% sure the Colorado woman, the DNA expert, was intentionally inflating them just to humor the DA? If so,
sure seems like
so, why only bias 5 to 10% and not make them 100% related 100% of the time?
Because DNA is never 100%. There isn't a situation out there that's 100%.
Unless you have a perfect test, which doesn't exist.
Yeah, then it's not.
There's no
100%.
perfect test.
So like a great test is like 99.9% or something like that, but it's never 100%. It's not black or white. I wish it was. That would be great. And that's what we've been taught for years and years and years and years and years. Yeah. Okay. So I think this is a really good question.
Sorry,
here.
I didn't mean to do that.
Why doesn't the prosecution hand over what is available? Now, I think this brings up two perspectives. Objectively, why don't they hand over what is being asked? Okay. And then from a from a social perspective of their image, is there any additional reasons why they aren't handing that over? So objectively, why do you think they aren't handing over everything that the defense is asking for? We'll start there.
I mean, everything that the defense is which we don't even know everything the defense is asking for. Okay. But I think different things can have different reasons. So far we know that there's pieces of the video placing Kohberger, okay, supposedly, allegedly, and meaning suspect vehicle 1. They only have pieces of the video that's supposed to be placing suspect vehicle 1 in the neighborhood. And there's audio missing. And she said it starts way before even the part they were given. So there's going to be issues with that, and who knows why they're not turning that over. Is it because it could potentially be exculpatory? Maybe. Is it because I don't know, did the file get corrupted? Is there some kind of issue with it? I don't know. The thing is considering that Moscow PD was out there canvassing the neighborhood day 1 and 2, you wouldn't think this would be an FBI issue with that video. It's law enforcement locally with that video, which is interesting. And we know law enforcement lost video footage before too. So it makes me wonder, like, lost footage, they're only giving bits and pieces of footage and they're excluding audio from it, which if it's the light bulb camera, you guys, isn't that the same camera that supposedly is 50 feet from Xana's room and heard the dog barking and the whimper and the thud? Because then the audio is very important, wouldn't you say? A whimper, a thud, and dog barking could not, just because that's around the time they're saying the crime happened, does not mean it has anything to do with the crime. It could have to do with the house that camera is on. Like, there needs to be context. Like, they need to just be given the raw footage, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, unless for some reason it's exculpatory or for some reason there's an issue with the footage. I have no way of knowing that. I can't even begin to wonder why. The only reasons I can come up with in my head are not good ones. Other than there being an issue with the footage, and that's just me trying to play devil's advocate, but even that doesn't sound quite believable to me. With the cast information, why do you think they're not giving that over?
Oh gosh. I've said it now a couple times, but okay, I'll restate it again. So with the cast report, I think that they were playing a hand that they weren't expecting to have to deal with what they were dealt. Okay. And I'll lay that out a little bit more because I realized that sounded really confusing. Okay. So I think that they were expecting Bryan Kohberger to come out of the gate hot and shouting on the rooftops, "I'm innocent, and this is why, and this is where I was," giving the prosecution the ability to cater the narrative to whatever they needed because they truly believed Bryan Kohberger was guilty. Okay?
Okay.
Now, within that, again, I go back. I truly think that the prosecutors thought Bryan Kohberger was guilty. I don't think there's some big conspiracy, and Bryan Kohberger is the most important person in that state, and he's the target. I think they truly thought he was guilty, and I thought they were doing I believe they probably thought they were doing a service to the community who was by making sure that he was convicted. So they had some loose ends and some areas they needed to tie up tight, and one of them was his location during the crime. So they've been holding out, waiting for Bryan Kohberger's alibi to come through so they could then fix any, location, evidence, whatever, at the time of the crime. However, his alibi never came until 2 years later. So I think that put a massive kink in the things.
Yeah.
I truly do.
That's a really good point. And I think that's a comment trying to control the narrative.
What? This?
Yeah. Just letting you know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
I think it is because of your whole explanation earlier that made a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting though is like when you approach things, so like this comment, "Stay in your lane, Brendan. I highly doubt you are in any position to judge an attorney's performance." So if here's the response to that. You're right. You are right. And I'm going to continue talking. Like what, it doesn't really control the narrative in the chat. But that's a good example from what we were talking about. But it doesn't really control the narrative if like you don't let that impact you. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm not a legal expert, but I am a citizen expert since I'm a citizen, and it's our job to care about our judicial system. So it's absolutely my job to judge attorneys. It is absolutely my job to judge law enforcement. It is absolutely my job to judge cases and court hearings. And anybody that tries to tell you it's not, you know, they're just wrong. That's literally the basis. That is what our country was founded on, was that we are involved in these things. That's the point of a jury. That is the point of the coverage. That was the point of mainstream media before mainstream media turned into what it is today. You know, it is our job. It is up to us. And what's scary and dangerous is when people start believing things like that. It is our job to come up here and say, no, we don't believe that. Like, it is our right to care about these things, you know? That sounds like a total, like, plea for humanity, but I didn't mean to make it that. Okay, so what do we got here? So how was the prosecution going to be ready last? Oh, I know. How was the prosecution going to be ready last year, then again this summer? Yet they claim they don't have everything that Ann Taylor is asking for, even the basic stuff stated on the PCA and the discovery. I agree. I agree. I agree. You're like obsessed with the chat now.
No, I wouldn't have even commented on it.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
That's why I don't point it out to you.
I see that. Listen, I'll comment on anything. It doesn't matter because it doesn't control the narrative. Because listen, there's a very big difference between
I don't want to
somebody
continue
being
talking about
cocky and somebody being confident in what they're saying. I am confident that I am not an expert in these topics, but I am confident that it is my right and job to care about these topics.
Yeah, I think as long as it's your prerogative to care about it, nobody can tell you to not care about it.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
You know,
and I think
it's
that
your choice if you don't want to care. It's your choice if you think that it's not your place to judge the performance of the justice system. I don't agree with that on a personal level. I'm not going to act like I'm, you know, I shouldn't care about it. That's why we're on here. That's why we're on here. But I don't know. I just didn't want to go there.
Okay, so I mean, the only thing we were talking about that
and it's
before we got on that topic was just the cast report. And I willingly moved to a different topic because we've talked about the cast report in length. And again, I feel like we've given a lot of information when it comes to the cast report. I feel like we have talked about the ins and the outs of what it could mean and why they haven't been able to get it. I think that we've talked about how the lack of cellular coverage in the area can be manipulated. Like that can be used as a conviction tool. Because of the lack of coverage doesn't mean that there's not going to be evidence. It also means that that could supply just enough evidence to use a connection to a tower in a negative way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. But okay, so what do we got here? Well, we have to assume he is innocent until proven guilty. However, it seems more like he is guilty until proven innocent, and maybe that stems from too much media. Listen, I agree with you. And it is a very interesting question and statement that it does seem like it's he's guilty and he's trying to prove his innocence. And yes, I do think that is the cause of mainstream media. Weren't we just talking about this the other day, that mainstream media used to mean something? It used to be a platform. It used to be a tool that the citizens of the US or the world, depending on where you're at, used to be able to turn to that to find out what was going on in the US. Not how to think about what was going on in the US, but to find out what was going on in the US. And now we don't have that. Now we have channels like ours, which, you know, are being targeted because we just want to get back to that unbiased coverage. You know?
Yeah. I would prefer it to be facts stated in mainstream media.
I wish, man. I wish. That would be incredible.
Or at least some kind of, at least one news agency out there that just gave information. And now, like,
even Vice,
you know,
got pulled into a political direction, you know?
It did.
And they used to be pretty unbiased, good coverage, you know, on HBO.
There used to be tabloids and then there used to be news. Now it's all the same thing.
Yes.
It's all the same
That's
thing.
what we were talking about. You're right. There used to be news, and then there were tabloids. Tabloids were the opinion-based stories and information on what was going on in the nation, and news offered the unbiased, objective information of what was going on in the nation. Now they're just the same. The tabloids, the papers that you see on the stand in the grocery store, and they're still there, they are, is the news.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks.
Like Banfield, like supposedly News Nation is supposed to be unbiased. Okay, that's their whole slogan, is that they provide unbiased coverage. And then you tune into Banfield or Cuomo and you're like, unbiased?
Yeah,
what?
I know.
Maybe they mean politically, like that they're independent in the middle or something. But even that, I don't know.
I have no idea. It's interesting.
I mean,
it's
when they report on things that are political, they are more in the middle than, say, Fox or CNN.
Yeah, but dude,
when it comes to crime, they are one of the most biased news sources you could find.
Yeah. That's why I personally like my politics.
It's all tabloid,
not connected to my crime. In my opinion, those are two separate things, you know?
Yeah, they feel separate to me as well.
Politics is inherently biased. That's the whole basis behind it. Like, that is its roots, is to be biased and opinionated and subjective. And news and crime is not.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep.
News and crime is not. So, okay, let's see here. Okay, I meant to bring up this one also. If the state doesn't have the evidence they state exists in the PCA, do we need to wait for the trial to be revealed? Unfortunately, I think so, based on what we're seeing, man. And listen, Mr. Judge, you're supposed to be the unbiased one here.
Did you read the whole thing?
Yeah. You're supposed to be the unbiased one here. I mean, I read up until the first question. If there's two questions, then I read them separate. But Judge is supposed to be the unbiased one here, right?
Okay.
And he is supposed to be the representation of the state for the people. That is what he is there for. And to be unbiased between the state and the defense. And part of that, I believe, is also to protect the financial interests of the state and the people.
Okay.
So I would hope that if there's anywhere in this case right now that Judge feels like, based on what he's seen, that there is not enough evidence or there is exculpatory evidence towards Bryan, he would suggest to Bill Thompson, like, this needs to stop, dude. We need to stop this. I don't think that's ever possible. I just want to be clear. I'm throwing this idea out there, this think tank idea, while I'm believing there's no way that can happen. They won't just pull back. Will Bill Thompson really do this to the families? That's my biggest concern too, and I think that's part of the reason why Ann Taylor gets attacked so much right now, is that the decisions that the prosecution is making doesn't look good for the families, in my opinion. It doesn't feel very supportive. It doesn't feel like they're trying to find justice. It doesn't feel like they're trying to do what's best for the victims' families, which are considered victims in a court of law in Idaho, you know?
Yeah. So there was a part where, and I would really like to pull it up, but obviously I'm going to have to find it, and maybe we can do it next time, where the state says the false narratives that the defense has been pushing is why this hearing should be closed. You didn't hear that part? Where they literally said the defense is pushing false narratives.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And we know, you guys, so...
Wait, is that the part where Ann Taylor responded right after and was like, Judge, I am not pushing the false narrative, whatever, and then Judge steps in and says, hey, let's not go there. Let's not make it personal. Okay.
It might be.
I know where you're talking about.
It might be. I'm not 100% sure.
For sure.
I don't know. It might be, but I heard that part and I was like, whoa. And it reminded me of something. It reminded me of the leaked Steve Goncalves messages is what it reminded me of. And in recent days, okay, in the past few weeks, Steve has been reaching out to many content creators, many on the fringe.
Just be careful with that one.
Okay, to clarify,
there are people why.
There are people
I get it.
claiming that.
Yes. Okay.
So there's people saying, hey, I talked to Steve and this is what he showed me. This is what he gave me. You know, it's pretty clear that he gave because Chris McDonough thought he had something special in the Garrett discovery and thought that it proved that Bryan, followed Maddie and Kaylee. And he had just had an interview with Goncalves. It's pretty clear they gave that to him. And also there's a couple other creators that he's been reaching out to and giving the Garrett discovery and acting like it's this bombshell, even though it's totally public information, and prove something. And we know in those text messages to Brett Norton, he said that Ann was putting out stuff to cause this narrative, to bias everybody. So I think that Steve has been fed this lie, or maybe it's even real. I don't know, but maybe it's being inflated. That the defense is leaking all of this information like Linda Lane, but no, not Linda Lane, because Steve leaked that. And I think that's pretty well known by now. But other things like the defense is leaking these little things here and there to try to bias the public and make everyone think Bryan is innocent. So now this is very This is very subjective and speculative on my part, you guys. So you don't believe me, but I think that he has taken it on as his own personal responsibility to try to balance that out in favor of the prosecution. And I think that he is spreading information to people and trying to get them to see it their way, that Bryan is guilty because of this and this and this.
Yeah, I would just
while I don't blame him if he is doing that, we have to be cognizant of it. Yeah. That they are biased because they are in grief and this is their child and their child was murdered and they believe it is this man and they are emotional about it and they may not be entirely objective and they may be being manipulated, which I think they've been heavily manipulated this entire time. And I've said that for a while now. I think that they have an echo chamber around them when it comes to it too. So
I just want the true.
It just reminded me of
that. Of their child.
But is Bill Thompson Is he operating under that belief, or is he spreading that belief to the families?
Yeah.
That the defense is creating false narratives and leaking information, causing this pro-Burger movement.
Yeah.
Is that a part of the character assassination campaign?
I don't know. I think you're more on it because look, do I think that somebody could lose a child and then take part in some kind of false narrative being driven to prosecute somebody that might not be the reason their child's life ended? I don't see it. I'm sorry. I just don't see it, you guys. But do I think that they could be told that the defense is putting out all this wild information, and that's why podcasts like Thought Riot Podcast exist and all these other podcasts exist because of the defense? So Steve has made a mission to target these podcasts and give information. Maybe, I don't know. Either way, it doesn't make me feel negative about Steve. I just feel bad, man, because to have that kind of drive and buy-in, like, it's clear they're hurting, and that sucks. And I feel horrible for them. And I wish I could, carry some of that for them. That just sucks to see a situation like that, where you see someone so obsessively involved in trying to make sure the person that they believe ended their child's life is convicted, when the evidence doesn't support that right now. Not that it won't, but what we have right now doesn't. Tough, dude.
Yeah.
Tough.
I mean, look, I think he does believe that Bryan's guilty. I think he does believe in the state's. Yeah, I think he believes in the state's case. Look, Bryan, I know that there's been a lot talked about this. Like, well, if they were going to frame Bryan Kohberger, why Bryan? Why would they pick him? Like, that makes no sense. Look, I think that it can't. That's why I said framing by tunnel vision, where it's not like intentional, malicious framing, but it's a situation where this person was out driving that night. It's convenient. It's like, okay, there's a white sedan pulling in this neighborhood, and there's a white sedan who left this area in, Pullman at this time, and he matches, Dylan's description, and you know what I mean? And they just go off of that, and it goes from there. And the police can really believe somebody is guilty and have confirmation bias when they're looking into it. And then could they take it a step further and try to ensure this person is convicted because it's shaky and they're worried about this person killing again? They're worried about the community. They're worried about the university. They're worried about finances. So they take a little DNA, and
just to make sure,
plant
because
it
they know it's
just to make sure, because they know it's got to be Kohberger. It can't be anybody else. There's no other evidence pointing to anybody else.
I think that is the most likely scenario myself.
If he's innocent, yes, I believe that is what happened. If he's innocent, if he's guilty, then they just clearly sucked at the investigation. They did not handle the crime scene right. They did not canvass correctly, apparently. They did not handle the cell phone evidence well. The DNA clearly has issues, though we don't know entirely what those issues are.
Yeah.
We just know that the profile was partial and ambiguous, and, a very small amount of skin cells is what we've seen from declarations like Bicca Barlow's declaration. Because I see a lot of people saying, well, it doesn't say in the PCA it's touch DNA. Go read the declarations about the DNA.
Right.
Go read other documents, because it does talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But listen, this case is crazy. And like I said in the beginning of this, you guys, I still don't feel like I had enough time to chew on everything. So I do think I'm going to be bringing this up again. But tonight we started a little bit early because we have some early business tomorrow with the new studio. Okay, we got some and the new studio is awesome, you guys. And it's a serious investment, right? And we will own it. So it is nice not having to rent a studio, you know. But
yeah, so I saw Gisela said, what if the federal and jury, I assume you mean the grand jury, the federal grand jury that we were talking about earlier, because they said federal indictment. What if it has to do with something with this Brady case? Maybe that's a possibility. That's interesting.
The Brady case, the training records, the Fed involvement in Dr. Moore, the fraudulence and the ISP.
What if this all has to do with the ISP? What if this all has to do with Tolson and ISP and other cases they've been involved in? What if there's a federal indictment on an ISP officer?
Yeah,
that was involved in this case.
And you guys, I don't know if you own, like you guys own, you know, houses, buildings, anything like that, but unfortunately it takes a long time. So, you know, even though we got it, it could take a couple months still. So just bear with us through the ups and the downs until we get to like our stationary studio. That's awesome. So yeah.
Were there any more questions that you wanted to get to really quick?
No, not that. We'll just bring them up when we talk about it again, because there's still a few in the chat area.
Oh, there's not much. So what is ex parte? Well, I thought I knew what it was. I don't now. So I'll answer that next time. I'll look it up.
Could the knowledge of only one tower and the lack of accuracy for cast be something the killer took into account? Likely. I mean, maybe, but that would be them making the risky decision to take their phone with them when it's much easier to just leave it at home,
right?
Like we saw in the 4chan theory and information. So I don't. That would be a tough one. If you like reading or listening to people,
if you don't like reading or listening to people for a long time, or scheduling, and you come off.
Did you only become a judge because you're
sexist? Did you only become a judge because your name is Judge?
Yeah.
Should have gone into baseball.
Yep. That's
not a question, Lisa, but
so you and Malia do an absolutely 100% amazing job with the way you two go about your show. Amazing. Well, we appreciate that.
Yes.
And the goal is,
thank you, James,
is that we are here for you guys. You guys are the thought rioters, and you guys are the reason that we are here doing the show. And shout out to my keys here. We appreciate you. That is awesome. Always appreciate you. Always hooking up a lucky
thank you, Mikey,
new member. So
yeah, they're totally right. So the Q&A doesn't work on iPhones.
Okay.
On the iPhone app, but maybe try the browser.
Okay.
I don't know. That's really crappy.
Yeah.
Well, let me do some research. Maybe another type of way we could do a Q&A and be able to pull it up. I don't know.
Yep.
So that everybody could participate. Let me look into it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So that everyone can participate and not have to worry about it not working.
All right, you guys. Well, that is it for the Ready to Rumble number 2. Breaking down the Bryan Kohberger latest hearing, the hearing of 05/02/2024. And we appreciate you all for hanging out with us and being here with us. You guys are all incredible, amazing, and thank you guys for just being you. You can find us on every major podcast platform, every major social media platform. All you got to do is search Thought Riot Podcast spelt all the way out. Thought Riot Podcast spelt all the way out, and you will be able to find us on anything. We also have a Discord. That Discord is free, but it requires that link that I just posted right now. And if you if you hop on there, if you're not sure what Discord is, I always suggest to people that you watch a YouTube video giving a breakdown of Discord. We also have a Patreon, and I just posted the Patreon link right now too. And we do have a free tier. Anything we offer for conversation and continued interest and investigation, there's going to be free tiers, you guys. So we will soon be doing members videos again, and I'm excited for them. We just need to get to a place where things are calm again, and right now things are wild, crazy, insane.
Yes, thank you guys for being here and sticking with us through it, because things are a little hectic. Things are, a little cray right now. But we'll get back to more of like our usual schedule and, doing members lives and, all the good stuff. But thank you guys for your continued support and tuning in.
Yeah.
Remember to check us out on all our social medias. And yes, I do mostly run the Twitter. I'm putting more time into it. I'm trying to grow that platform. So please come over there and hang out with us. Brendan gets on there too.
Yeah.
I'm just on it more often right now because I have a little more time to put into it than he does. So,
and just remember, you guys, I need you to believe in the FBI. You must. I can't go to bed at night if you don't all believe the FBI is great.